All right, I'd like to welcome everybody out to this review of The Mandalorian. I've got a special guest here with me today, my friend Lamont Lovejoy, who we actually have a joint podcast that we do, and we also have another YouTube channel where we do movie reviews, and you can find us over there at Surprise We Both Love Movies. Today, I wanted to do a review on the first episode of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Lamont, what did you think of this episode?
All right, Mandalorian. I'm a big Star Wars fan. Love the series. Episode 1. I'm excited. My son's telling me certain things that may happen. I'm hearing little things here and there about what could happen. And episode 1 starts us out where, obviously he's still got the child. He's trying to figure out how to get the child back to its people. And so we start out with a little bit of excitement. Some of the stuff that we saw in some of the previews, and get into a scene where he's trying to shake down somebody to get some information to figure out how to find other Mandalorians so that he can get the child back to where it's supposed to go. And right out of the gate, we start out with some pretty good action in a boxing scene between some Gamorrean guards.
Yep.
And they start out in a fight sequence, and it's all a setup. So it was pretty interesting right out of the gates. And then we transitioned into, we end up going to Tatooine again. So I always like going to Tatooine whenever you're OG Star Wars fan. Whenever you get to go back to the home planet, it's a pretty good start. Why don't you take it from there? What did you think after we got Tatooine?
Well, after we got there, I think it kind of fell apart, to be honest with you. Like you, I was excited when it started. It had a brilliant opening. And I honestly was hoping that this episode was going to be more of a direct continuation of the way the season ended, right?
Yeah.
We've got no Moff Gideon. We've got nobody else from the first season except for a couple of one returning character anyway from season 1 of The Mandalorian on Tatooine, but that's it.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was I think they did a disservice with the overall story on this, because we really did not move the story forward any more than what you just mentioned. That was it.
Right.
There was some fan service in this. And in fact, the very last shot of the show, I wasn't expecting it. And it was pretty awesome, the very last shot. And people are going to have to watch closely at the end. It was surprising. It wasn't what I was expecting. And I've stayed away from spoilers. Okay. I went into this not reading anything, not knowing where this story was going to go. And we do get a lot of fan service. But the story with where they go with it, I think, is a rehash of a couple of stories from the first season. And it in a much grander way, but it doesn't do service to the overall Mandalorian story of having to get the kid back to his people. So
right. And I would say that then that's what happened. After you got Tatooine, I'm sorry, then it turned into Tremors. I felt like I was watching Tremors.
That's what I thought of.
And I was like, I've seen this. I've seen the sequel. I don't really need to see Star Wars Tremors. And I realized that, obviously the Mandalorian is well versed in many languages. Now I realize that he is also a dog dinosaur whisperer, and he can talk to animals and many other creatures in order to move the story along. So yeah, it wasn't really a great episode. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I even went back and watched a little bit of the last season finale just to kind of bring myself up to speed. And I was just like, it was all right. So I'm really looking forward to the next episode. I think that's where maybe they'll be able to get back to that kind of pacing and storyline and the characters that we've come to love so far on The Mandalorian.
I sure hope so, because now we've had 2 episodes where there have been an incredible ending, and they've got a couple storylines they have to follow up on now. And I don't know if they're trying to create some multiple threads, but this ended up being a kind of a rehash of there was an episode in the first season where he had to kill this creature.
Yeah.
He had to get something. In order to get something, he had to kill the creature. Well, right. You had the same thing here. In order to get something, he had to kill the creature, but on a much grander scale. And I'm like, I don't want to see a rehash of a story we've already seen. I want them to move the story forward. And unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of that in this. Was it a bad episode? No, I didn't think it was a bad episode, but it seemed like something you would get in the middle of a season and not at the beginning of a season, especially not with the way season 1 ended. What's going on when he left? What's keeping, Moff Gideon from killing everybody? Like, why We got none of that.
The only thing I can see is, hey, we got this awesome guest star that we can have in this episode, and Timothy
Yes.
Oliphant he's great as this character that he plays
Yes.
in this episode. But other than that, it was just, it was pretty,
yeah,
pretty
run of the mill. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. What would you give it?
6 out of 10.
Yeah, I almost went there. I almost did. But I think because of the way the very last shot, I think made up for that. I really think it did. And I knew it was Timothy Oliphant as soon as he started speaking. And I didn't know he was going to be in the show. But then when he took the helmet off, I'm like, is that really him? Like, it didn't look like him, right?
Right.
They kind of made him look like a Pierce Brosnan with the way the hair was and everything else. So, yeah. So he just has, Timothy has this way of walking that's kind of feminine, and you could tell it was him with the way he was walking and the way he holds his body. So I always like him in everything he does, and he did well in this. But again, I'm wondering if they're going to bring him back later on. They tend to kind of do that in shows where they'll do something with someone and then, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But disappointing for the first episode, I got to be honest. So I'm going to try and do this every week as the episodes get released so that as people wake up in the morning, you guys will have these reviews available. We're not going to do any major spoilers, but I liked your analogy about the Tremors. That's exactly what it seemed like. A little bit of, I'd say, Lord of the Rings thrown in there a little bit at the end too. But it just, not the way I was hoping the season would start.
No, but hopefully episode number 2 will take us back to the standards that we're used to, accustomed to, and it'll bring that story back together. That's the only thing I can hope for. But otherwise, weak sauce for the start. Weak sauce.
I agree. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you guys for this episode, but I'm Aaron Fisher.
And I'm Lamont Lovejoy.
And we'll see you on the next episode.